INEC will not sanction anybody because INEC is burdened with a lot before. Part of the resolutions pushed forward in the Wins Commission report was able to be able to stratify INEC in such a way that they will be able to attend to many things. Just like INEC cannot fix the problem of electoral offences. In fact, the talk about a separate independent commission for electoral offences was muted, but it's going to increase the bureaucratic oversight. System movement. As a month ago, when I was in Abuja, I started seeing President Bola Tinubu 2027 poster.
Only the first year.
You get
2023. Yeah.
So we have started seeing months of. So the same for ADC. So the same for other political parties. You can see them 2027 already. Achievements here and go. So who do they want to sanction? Who do they want to hold? I think what is most important that INEC should be able to do as a regulation is to allow for equal exposure.
Grid collapse. They say the grid collapse and all that. No, I think it's a crying shame. It is embarrassing. It is indefensible that a country of over 200 million people that will only provide about 2,000 megawatts. The megawatts that is provided has never gone beyond 4,000 megawatts. In fact, under critical situations, it goes down to 1,000 megawatts. Okay, NSC now is saying, oh, there has been a collapse of the grid. This grid collapsed 11 times in 2024. Only those who are ignorant and dumb and deaf will not remember that in 2024, this same national grid collapsed over 10 times.
Nigeria is not a country. Nigeria, it's obvious. It's unfortunate how this thing is going on in our country. Now, national grid collapses for how many times? For 1 year, national grid collapses for even more than 10 times. Today, it's still collapsing. Till today. It's obvious. I don't know what is going. I don't know. It's unfortunate. It's obvious that at this time, we are still talking about national grid with a population of over 200 million. Yeah, over 200 million. Anyways, just take your time, listen to this video, because now there's a lot of tensions that ADC has officially been recognized by INEC that the fashion of David Mark is the leader of the ADC. It means that for the ADC to be recognized by INEC, it means that now they are not the ADC, they are not a party on their own. So those people, some of those people that are still being skeptical about ADC crisis, this and that, you are going to see massive defection. We start very soon. So before then, take your time, listen to this video to the end, and please do me a favor, like, share, comment, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll be your guy, runner for me now.
Power. Yeah. The grid collapsed again yesterday, and of course, politics. INEC saying that don't campaign early. There are rules and regulations around this. Your take on some of the stories this morning.
Okay, you see, I made a statement yesterday. I said it is best for our labor leaders to have a research department so that they just talk amiss. And that point again comes to bear as regards what Joe Ajero said. It's obvious that there's no research department at this level. Maybe save for the days of the likes of my friend Peter Esele. That's when you really had rigor in labor. But today it's a joke, and that's why they can make faulty arguments like Nupeng was making. They can make faulty arguments like TUC was making about a law that not even been implemented yet and calling for strike. Ajero is saying they should sanction the disco companies and everything. The biggest part of the argument is not making is the state of the grid that needs to pretty much operate. And let me give you empirical data. Average generation in megawatts from January to August has averaged 4,809. The stranded generation is about 1,866 megawatts. So even if you push on the grid can hardly take everything generated. So how is the problem of the Gencos that MBET is still owing money to today? The money is going to about 6 trillion. They are pushing electricity on the grid, but what is the state of the grid? You can say, okay, government stop supporting people and the fact that they've privatized and everything. The truth is, even if the generation companies push electricity out on this grid that has a lot of common, you have a collapsing. Yeah. You have power that is stranded, that is not utilized. So the problem should be about the grid system and NISO. But we like to throw the baby away with the bathwater. Now we are blaming the Gencos. Oh, because government is funding and everything. In his arguments, Joe Ajero did not also talk about the debts being owed the Gencos.
Yes, we spoke about that yesterday.
So if you are saying government is funding and everything, is government putting the full money to MBET? No. There's a shortfall of over 200 billion on a monthly basis that the money is accruing. You heard Joe Gaji said it yesterday. It's not talking about the debts owed them. It's not talking about the fact that if you pay them that they will be able to service their bank encumbrances. Even some of the initial buyers of these companies have been taken over because they couldn't settle their bank encumbrances. So you can see why we say, if not for anything, labor should at least have a research department. And please, if I see my great Egbo, the likes of Ogaremu I would tell him that maybe that's what they should be teaching people in their school where they treat trade unionists. The need for research, because I want a country where trade union will be able to make very verifiable arguments, not just emotional arguments. Secondly, this morning, I want to talk about campaign. Everybody has fallen short of this initial early campaigning. The question is, INEC will not sanction anybody because INEC is burdened with a lot before. Part of the resolutions pushed forward in the Wins Commission report was able to be able to stratify INEC in such a way that they will be able to attend to many things. Just like INEC cannot fix the problem of electoral offences. In fact, you talk about a separate independent commission for electoral offences was muted, but it's going to increase the bureaucratic oversight. So this one early campaigning, INEC, because if you want to sanction everybody, you even sanction the media too. Everybody is complicit here. You sanction the advertising companies, you sanction the people, and they talk about third party. There's nothing called third party. It is these same politicians that are orchestrating from one part. There is no big political ad that goes up that people don't know about. Who are the third parties? There's no third party. It's the same politicians that are funding orchestrating all sorts of political group, the 1860 movement. As a month ago, when I was in Abuja, I started seeing President Bola Tinubu 2027 poster.
Only the first year.
You get
2023.
So I started seeing months of, so the same for ADC, so the same for other political parties. You can see them 2027 already, achievements here and go. So who do they want to sanction? Who do they want to hold? I think what is most important that INEC should be able to do as a regulation is to allow for equal exposure when the political campaign starts. See, some NGO did a research and showed that political TV stations were exclusively biased in the last election. In fact, they cited a particular TV station that took about 17 stories of the APC in the news bulletin, or 14 stories, and didn't balance it with other political parties.
That's That's NBC's remit, isn't it?
No. There was an NGO that did the research, and they talked about
the national.
That's NBC's. And INEC too should be able to also call for it and penalize the NBC strongly. But Arise here fall on the threshold of balance. Fair balance. Out of most of the stations, Arise was balanced. That report is out there. They also looked at radio stations and everything. Because you see, there are very steep laws in other climes. No, we are very fair and balanced here. There's also what's it called, steep rules in other climes that in a case where you give one political party audience over the other, you can be sanctioned. I think that's the only thing we should call for. But in terms of political campaign, it's always been a culture and it will continue. But we must look for a lot of fairness in the political coverage. It should be skewed towards one over the other. That's just my point here.
Thank you.
Let me deal with the INEC issue first and foremost. Now, it's a very fine balance. Where do you draw the line between free speech and campaigns? Now, persons who are involved in political activities, they are also citizens. They are also entitled to free speech. To say, oh, I'm interested in this. This is what I think about, the polity. You cannot say, for example, that Mr. Peter Obi is campaigning when he speaks, or that Atiku Abubakar is campaigning. There's that territory that allows opposition figures to make free speech. However, I see where INEC and Professor Atari Ujega, where they're coming from. Because the electoral process, whether in Nigeria or elsewhere, is a rules-based process. And what is the rule? You are told that, look, campaigns cannot start until XYZ time. If you are told, for example, that you can't start campaign, as our law says, until 150 days before the election. If you start earlier, it will look like you are breaking the law. However, there is a lacuna within the law, within the electoral framework in that regard. One of the outcomes of the Waste Committee was that there should be an National Electoral Offenders Commission. Even this present head of the INEC has asked for it, that people should be sanctioned if they break the laws. Now, if you don't have a regime in place for ensuring sanction for bad behavior, then of course, you will find yourself in a rather incongruous situation when you then insist that people must behave according to the rules. What we're asking for in Nigeria is a strictly rules-based political process. Not just a rules-based political process. The conversation since the 2023 general election has been about reform, electoral reform. Those who are involved in this subject have identified several issues that require reform. Now, what is the urgency of now that the Tinubu administration is applying to this electoral reform, either in terms of gender representation, or in terms of security protocols, or in terms of the adoption and application of technology, or in terms even of the organizational process by INEC itself? Nobody is talking about that. And that, I hope not, will be the major issue in the 2027 general elections. That is that about that. As for grid collapse, they say the grid collapse and all that. No, I think it's a crying shame. It is embarrassing. It is indefensible that a country of over 200 million people, that we only provide about 2,000 megawatts. The megawatts that is provided has never gone beyond 4,000 megawatts. In fact, under critical situations, it goes down to 1,000 megawatts. Okay, NSC now is saying, oh, there has been a collapse of the grid. This grid collapsed 11 times in 2024. Only those who are ignorant and dumb and deaf will not remember that in 2024, this same national grid collapsed over 10 times. And we said at that time that this grid will continue to collapse. This grid is also collapsing in 2025, putting people in very difficult situations. Only yesterday we were talking about Ethiopia doing the Grand Renaissance Dam that they have spent over 5 billion to put together. You know, short of the diplomatic complications involved in that Renaissance Dam, you saw a country called Ethiopia that said, look, we have to give our people electricity, 101 million of them. What is the position of the Nigerian government on this grid collapse? What is the government doing? About a month ago, the government said, okay, there are legacy debts in this section, 4.424 trillion, they said. Now, President Tinubu called a meeting and said, look, we should double check this and all of that. No, but the issue is not just about debt. The government of Nigeria controls the Transmission Commission of Nigeria, the TCN. Now we have a story about that, Manitoba and all of that. I don't want to go into all of that. You know, that's not relevant to this current conversation. But what we have not done is that we have not worked out that framework properly. Instead, what you get is this asinine talk that, the governments before now that did a review of the electricity sector, they didn't do it well. They gave attention to their own cronies, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what have you done to address the situation? What you get is a lot of blame trading. Gencos, we say we are not the problem. Disco, we say we are not the problem. In fact, we are being owed money. Mbet, we say nobody is paying us. No, you can't have that in a serious-minded country. And so that's why I started the example of Ethiopia. Leadership is what matters in this particular regard. Now, as for NUPRC, the contest yesterday was a meeting put together by NETI, the Extractive Industry Transparency Structure. And at that meeting, represented, what's his name, Gbenga Komolafe, who is in charge of the Upstream Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, as it is called, was represented by one of his officials. And they were talking about what they call, is it abandonment, right? Yeah, abandonment and decommissioning plans. Yeah. And he said, look, these liabilities that we have incurred in that regard, we have up to about 4.4 billion naira in terms of liabilities. What are these abandonment and decommissioning plans? These are wells that used to be very prolific, that the partners in the joint venture agreement abandoned. They will put a Christmas tree there and then they will leave it. Some of those Christmas trees are not properly secured. The decommissioning is not properly done, and that's why now and again you will have issues in the Niger Delta. Christmas tree blowing up, spill occurring. Okay, so Gbenga Komolafe now says, okay, NUPRC under his watch is going to take a look at this because there are liabilities involved. So if he follows the law, if as he says, he's following the law, then he's right. Because he was questioning, I think, is it section 222, section 223 of the Petroleum and Industry Act of 2001, of 2021. And also, there is a report by Standard & Poor's, S&P, which cited best practice, global standard practice in Australia, in Canada, in Mexico, what you do with abandoned and decommissioned wells. So to that extent, you can say what the NUPRC is proposing is in line with standard practice. However, there are issues. NNPC is a joint partner in many of these projects. In fact, NNPC owns about 40 to 60%. Now, what does that tell you? Some of the companies that are involved in what they are trying to look for can go to court. There could be a lot of litigation. And they will say, okay, if we say we have this liability of 4.4 billion, what is the NNPC Limited of Nigeria going to do about it? Because those companies, whether it's Shell or it's ExxonMobil, they will want to defend their rights. So does Nigeria have the resources to fight this? So in trying to say we are following the rules, we are trying to grandstand, at the same time you may not know what other problem that you are opening up. And I hope that in the days to come, some of the people who know these issues and who are involved in it will come forward to tell us the nitty-gritty of this crisis that may be brewing. The other thing is ADC. ADC, very quickly. Now, so now they say David Mark, Senator, is authentic chairman. Yeah. Now they say Comrade Rauf Aregbesola is authentic Secretary General. Now, what this says is that it gives certainty in terms of the competition, the looming competition. It says that the ADC now is properly recognized by the authorities as an authentic opposition party. It will also help the party to gain traction, because there were persons who have been very nervous about joining the ADC. Yeah. On this same program, we have had people coming here saying that the ADC is not a political association, it's not a political party, because it has not been recognized by INEC. Now INEC says we recognize it, we recognize the officers. So the game is on. So you will see a lot of traction, you will see a lot of confidence, and people who have been sitting on the fence will now have the confidence to join the ADC. What is our interest as ordinary people? We, the ordinary people of Nigeria, we just want all flowers to bloom. Yeah. We want contestation. We want whoever means the best for Nigeria to be the person that will lead this country forward. But I always say, when we discuss this subject, that nobody should assume that the APC will also go and fold his arms. Now that they have registered ADC, President Tinubu will return very quickly from Paris, where he has been holding hands with Emmanuel Macron. Because now, what INEC has said is that, look, there's a game here. There is another prominent political party that has emerged, and we recognize their officers. So let's see what happens hereafter.
All right, prominent political party. I think the next few days and weeks will determine just how prominent, significant, powerful, or a threat the ADC would be to the sitting All Progressives Congress, and of course to the main opposition party as it stands currently, the PDP. And let's not forget the Labour Party as well, following the impact they made during the last election in 2023, not just at the presidential level, but even at gubernatorial and National Assembly elections, or even State House elections. They still have a few hurdles ahead of them. So, well, congratulations are in order for them. National chairman, despite some of the technicalities in the submission of their forms, and they did say that they thought it would be sorted out within a week, and that we've seen that now happen. There's still some hurdles they'll have to face. I'd asked a question last week to one of the, to a guest who had come to speak on behalf of the ADC last week, that do they have sufficient time to campaign and to win the confidence of the people in the election? I believe the choice of whoever they would decide as their flag bearer, particularly in the presidential election, will go a long way in determining whether or not they can be taken seriously. In order for that to happen, I mentioned earlier on that they're going on a reconciliation and mobilization exercise across the country. This is critical because there are a number of people who would want to throw their hat in the ring to be the presidential flag bearer of the party. Names have already come up in the air. People like former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, people like Mr. Peter Obi, who will agree to step aside for the other. Would it be on the platform of the AGC? Would they be able to get their acts together? But very importantly, let me even challenge them. What is the ideology of the party? We often talk about how our political parties lack political ideology, and it's just another congregation of people who were not accepted in other parties, or who did not get the party tickets in other parties and come together, or disgruntled members of other leading parties who come together to form a party. Therefore, we don't really have an ideology that the people can hold on to and say, okay, I'm supporting this particular party because this is what they believe in, and this is why I'm going for it. So I think coming up with an ideology would be a good idea as an opposition party. But again, they are now running to the race. Let's see how much work they'll put in to ensure that they have a footing for the 2027 elections. Beyond that, then, let me talk about early campaigns. Now, we often talk about a lot of election infractions that happen, and INEC, maybe because they are overburdened, because they don't have the will to do it, or the intention to do it, they just look away. If we look at the 150-day rule for campaigns, I'm sure a lot of people, to some people it's news. It is coming as a surprise because it's not the norm. In fact, following in the past, what happens is that 2 years is for governance, 2 years for campaign. In this particular cycle, for the 4 years in government, there's been campaigns since inauguration day. We've seen the billboards in Abuja. So why didn't INEC speak up at the time? We've seen a number of people come out to speak. I mean, Dr. Patti made the point about free speech and people having their right to talk and not really direct campaign, but we see direct advertising. We see people taking up billboards and talking about their preferred candidate and saying, come 2027. What did INEC do about that? I hear that you can hide behind the excuse of, oh, I don't know who did it. It's just people who love me, my third party surrogate. But when I was in university, and I'm such a small community, I ran for election for the student union. Even at that, we had electoral guidelines. And if your poster came up anywhere, whether it was you or somebody else, as long as it's your face that's on that poster, you get penalized. When you get penalized enough, you will tell all your adoring fans not to go and campaign on your behalf. So this excuse around, people are campaigning on their behalf is a point that's dead on arrival, in my view. And if they're really serious about curtailing election infractions, they can do it with the will and with the punishment. Currently, there's some of the sanctions that apply for people who break the electoral laws are like 500,000 naira in some instances. Is it an APC, PDP, ADC, Labour Party that cannot pay 500,000 naira, or the candidate who spent billions of naira in executing an election that would not be able to pay the sanction of 500,000 naira? It is not a deterrent enough. So if we're serious enough about it, we've often called to go back to the National Assembly to review the Electoral Act and see areas where we can make it watertight and ask for deeper and stiffer punitive measures to discourage this impunity when it comes to breaking electoral laws. But again, the people in the National Assembly are politicians themselves. Would they be willing to put in the law things that may be seen to work against their party or preferred candidates? These are the questions. But if we
just imagine national grid collapses more than 10 times in 1 year. Now the thing is, Tinubu APC government, they are not working very hard to make sure they fix this national grid. It does not collapse next time. But they are working very hard to win the next election, 2027 presidential election. That is still far away. And only God knows how many times this national grid is still going to collapse, because we still have over a year before the next election. So now they are going to do maybe temporary to make sure, okay, they all do one or two things. They're never going to look for a permanent solution, or time is too small to do that. Just imagine a country of over 200 million. Every time national grid collapse, break out in a country, a giant of Africa, under APC, everything has collapsed. National grid collapses every time. The country is collapsing, economy is collapsed. Our GDP declining, all because we have a man who does not care, who does not understand how to run the country, is in power. Just imagine. Wow. If every president we had in this country has been behaving like this, running this country like this, only God knows by now, maybe we not have had the country at all. Maybe another country would have taken over Nigeria. But it is okay. It's obvious that we have equalist people in power, as APC brought into power, just to make sure they give Nigeria unnecessary suffering, unnecessary hardship, unnecessary. Other Africa countries are mocking us, laughing at us. They have been laughing at us. They always have reasons to laugh at us every time. Just imagine. Just the name, in the name, giant of Africa, Nigeria, we are only giant in just the name. By other things, by the development, in terms of electricity and others, we are not developing. Look at what is going on in Ethiopia. They just constructed everywhere. Look at what is happening in Rwanda. Are these people not Africans? They are. Anyways, what do you think about this? Please leave your honest opinion, like, share, comment, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel and be your guy, please.